At the end of the 1980s, the anachronistic totalitarian communist regimes of Eastern Europe without bloodshed disintegrated in front of the peoples who wanted freedom. From Ceausescu's Romania to Poland, from the Berlin Wall to the Soviet Union. These regimes have left deep bloody traces behind and tens of millions executed. Even the peoples of communist Yugoslavia failed to resist the spirit of freedom. The Yugoslav outlawed leadership of political Yugoslavs and political Serbs as opposed to political Croats, and political Slovenes sought to maintain the communist regime. That regime was imbued with the Big Serbia hegemonic spirit as well as the unitarian Yugoslav spirit. Political Yugoslavs and political Serbs found a common interest, political Serbs in Big Serbia and Yugoslavs in some kind of Yugoslavia, even a smaller one. Yugoslavs, like Serbs, believed that Croats had killed 700,000 people in Jasenovac, so they hated the very thought of the Croatian state. Although, contempt for the Croatian state was widespread even before the Second World War in 1939, visible in the first fascist organization of Yugoslav nationalists called Orjuna, founded in 1921. And in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, that lasted until 1941, Serbs were killing Croatian political leaders in Belgrade's parliament, and best of Croats intellectuals on the streets, and in the police basements, and discrimination of Croats was widespread. For example, there was more Serb generals in the Army of Independent State of Croatia during the Second World War, in comparison to Croat generals in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Franjo Tudjman was a communist who took part in the communist revolution on the territory of Yugoslavia in the Second World War. He was also a historian who, in his book The Roadless of Historical Reality in 1989, would write that 30,000 to 40,000 people were killed in Jasenovac instead of the 700,000 people claimed by political Serbs and political Yugoslavs. Tudjman will recognize, although too late to dispel prejudices among Serbs, that Jasenovac is an instrument for creating myths about Croats and consequent hatred. Franjo Tudjman will become the leader of the Croats in 1990. The 1986 memorandum of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts of SANU abandoned the idea of a Yugoslav state and indicated that the Serbian goal was to create a homogeneous Greater Serbia, where only Serbs would live. This was not a new idea, but a continuation of the homogeneous Serbia plan drawn up by Stephen Miljevi on June 30, 1941. Before that, Nikola Stojanovic and Srbobran in 1902 declared war on the Croats until the extermination of the Croats. The implementation of the plan began with the reorganization of the Yugoslav People's Army. In the officer military staff, there was discrimination based on the share of the people in the population of all peoples who were to become victims of aggression. Serbs, Yugoslavs, and Montenegrins were privileged, as can be seen in this table. Blue numbers show the deviation index for privileged nations and red for discriminated nations. Prior to the 1986 memorandum, care was taken to ensure that peoples were properly represented according to their share of the population. Apart from the discrimination in the military staff of the people who will become victims of aggression, there was also a territorial reorganization of the Yugoslav People's Army. The military areas will be changed so that the plan for the creation of a Big Serbia will be easier to implement. On the left is the layout of the areas before 1985, before the reorganization, and before the 1986 memorandum. On the right is the layout after the reorganization in 1987. The right picture also shows the borders of the planned Big Serbia. Military exercises were also conducted to implement the 1986 memorandum. Even before the memorandum, in 1983, the exercise of Sloga 83, in which the confiscation of weapons of Bosnia and Herzegovina was practiced, whose territory was planned to be annexed in full extent to Big Serbia. And also the confiscation of weapons of the Republic of Croatia, part of whose territory was planned to be annexed, was practiced. From 1986 to 1990, with military exercises codenamed Romania or otherwise called Plan S2, the Yugoslav People's Army would be trained to create a lesser Yugoslavia or a Big Serbia. The exercise was based on the assumption that Yugoslavia would be attacked by NATO, and that the Yugoslav People's Army would defend Yugoslavia. This is evident in these pictures. This figure shows the rehearsed defense response of the Yugoslav People's Army to NATO aggression. it will be evident that the Yugoslav People's Army was actually training for aggression against the Republic of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Because the trained defense against NATO aggression was in fact the latter Yugoslav or Serbian aggression on two Yugoslav republics. As we can see on this picture, the key part for carrying out the aggression will be the Serbs who lived on the territory of the Republic of Croatia. The Serb uprising took place mainly in areas where the share of Serbs was large. These are the orange areas in the picture. The blue area in this figure shows areas with a high proportion of Serbs in 1991. Here one can compare the area with a high proportion of Serbs in the areas where the fighting took place. In these areas, in the 1980s, Serbs were intimidated with propaganda with the already mentioned myth about Jasenovac and the Croatian state from the Second World War. The territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina was also mixed. The blue areas in this picture are areas with a large proportion of Serbs, green areas with a large proportion of Bosniak Muslims, and orange areas with a large proportion of Croats. This picture shows the ethnic picture of Yugoslavia in 1991. White areas are those where no nation has an absolute majority. This ethnic mixing is indirect evidence that a big Serbia could not have been created without genocide and ethnic cleansing, the most brutal type of war. This red area in the picture was important for the plan to create a smaller Yugoslavia or Big Serbia. Serbs in the area would later be armed by the Yugoslav People's Army. In the blue area was the naval area of the Yugoslav People's Army from which the Republic of Croatia would later be attacked. The Yugoslav People's Army was established on all islands. So in the blue area, the Yugoslav People's Army was established, and in the red area, there were armed Serbs. The plan was that, if this lower part of Croatia was cut off in two visible points K, then it would be easy to conquer the upper part of the Republic of Croatia and Bosnia, and Herzegovina would then be easily conquered. Before the armed uprising of Serbs in Croatia, and the aggression of the Yugoslav People's Army from the territories of Serbia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina and Montenegro, Milosevic needed to take more preparatory actions. The methods that Slobodan Milosevic was willing to apply against the Yugoslav constitution were visible in the Kosovo crisis of 1981, and later in the war in Kosovo in 1999. Milosevic's language was physical violence and a violation of the Yugoslav constitution. Milosevic agreed with Slovenia in 1985 that Slovenia could leave Yugoslavia because there were no Serbs in Slovenia. We can see that on this ethnic map. Contrary to the constitution of Yugoslavia, Milosevic abolished the autonomous province of Vojvodina by revolution named Yogurt Revolution. Between 25,000 and 50,000 Croats would be expelled from the territory of Vojvodina during the War of the 1990s, and concentration camps were organized in Vojvodina for Croats from the territory of the Republic of Croatia. Prior to the aggression, Milosevic invaded the monetary system of the National Bank of Yugoslavia on January 8, 1991, and stole foreign exchange reserves to finance the war. He received a promise from some Western countries for propaganda support and a green light for a war. Therefore the war could begin. By the way, intellectuals and Yugoslav diplomacy were pro-Yugoslav, and they were ready for the idea of small Yugoslavia, called also Big Serbia, instead of the idea of any independent Croatia. The Communist Party of Yugoslavia split into three parts according to the national key, the Yugoslav, Serbian, and Croatian part. In fear of the Serbian communists, and out of material interests, the Croatian part of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia in the form of the Croatian Democratic Union led by Franjo Tudjman, will side with the idea of an independent Croatian state. The Yugoslav part of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia on the territory of the Republic of Croatia, in the form of the Social Democratic Party led by Ivica Rain, will be against the idea of an independent Croatian state, but will only be passively aggressive. Before the aggression, Ivica Rain will hand over Croatian weapons to the Yugoslav People's Army. In addition, the Yugoslav part of the Communist Party of Yugoslavia and the Republic of Croatia will argue that it is a civil war of enraged Croatian and Serbian nationalisms, that Croats and Serbs are two tribes of the same people, and that an independent Republic of Croatia is impossible. Although they were not completely against Lesser Yugoslavia or Big Serbia. Religious affiliation is key to understanding the Yugoslav War. The four main religious currents were in Yugoslavia: communism, Saintsovism, Islam, and Catholicism. The communists had contempt for nationalism, and contradictorily too, that the communists were Yugoslav nationalists. The Yugoslav nation has no historical foundations, so the communists despised the Serbian and Croatian nations, which had historical foundations. They wanted to make Yugoslavs out of Serbs and Croats. Therefore, they did not solve the national issues in Yugoslavia as the Russian communists did in the Soviet Union, so unlike the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Yugoslav disintegration ended in war. The totalitarian communist regime, which did not allow the discussion of Croatian-Serbian disputes, is the main culprit for this outcome. When the disintegration of Yugoslavia was obvious, Serbian communists and Croatian communists were actually on the side of militarily stronger Serbian nationalism, or alternatively in a state of disappointment and apathy. Communists feared that Serbian terror will be similar to the terror the communists carried out after 1945, so a part of the Croatian communists sided with the interests of Croatian nationalism, in all leading positions. Josip Broz Tito was communist idol in their national Yugoslav paganism in which they ended up. Croatian people generally despise Tito as a symbol of Yugoslav nationalism and the totalitarian communist regime. The Serbian Saintsovism is relatively simple. Although it has Orthodox symbolism, its integral part is the ideology of Big Serbia and the orthodoxy is peripheral. There is an idolatry of Serbian nationalism in it, which is aimed to conquer the territory where the Serbs were. The Saintsovism did not respect the republican borders from the Yugoslav constitution, and supported the war conquests and war methods that were applied. The Saintsovism supported the myth of 700,000 killed Serbs in Jasenovac. They described the war as a biblical conflict to which international law of war could not be applied to Serbs. Saintsovism believes the Croats are actually Serb Catholics, and that Bosnian Muslims are also Serbs, but that did not stop them from carrying out ethnic cleansing from the area they considered their own. Serbian nationalism accepted such Saintsovism settings. The similarity between communism and Saintsovism is that they are focused on achieving earthly goals. The consequence of that is that Saint-Savic priests did not want to carry out burial ceremony for Orthodox Croats that fought against Big Serbia. Croats are mostly Catholics who very often disagree with Catholic secular interests. Catholicism was actually for Yugoslavism, which was understood as a mean of spreading Catholicism to the east. At the same time, Croats respected the Catholic moral system, so Catholic influence in the war was related to respect for international law of war. Catholic influence also referred to the acceptance of Croatian historical and legal right for the creation of the Croatian state, but not so explicitly, so at first the Pope John Paul II did not even want to receive the leaders of the Croatian people and he recognized the Croatian state quite late. Catholicism is universal, so it is not bothered by other nations, it only condemns secular laws that are contrary to Catholic moral law. Therefore, they are not necessarily opposed to either the communist or the Saintsovism secular order, if Catholics are not forced into behaviors contrary to Catholic morality. Depending on how powerful Muslims are in the area, Islam demands the Islamic legal order defined in the Quran. There is no problem with multinationality, but it seeks religious discrimination against non-Muslims. In his Islamic declaration, Bosnian Muslim political leader Alijo Izetbegovic called for an Islamic legal order. The similarity with Catholicism is that Islam is focused on saving the soul. This is the difference between Islam and Catholicism in comparison to communism and Saintsovism. The difference between Catholicism and Islam is that Islam saves the soul with the legal order and Catholicism with the faith. The difference between Saintsovism and Catholicism is illustrated by this picture. In front of the Catholic Church is a saint with a cross, and in front of the Saint-Savic Church is the statue with a sword. Neither Croats nor Serbs could come to terms with the goals of Islam, which were in fact best understood by Bosnian Croats and Bosnian Serbs. Croat political leader Franjo Tudjman was confused with the insincerity and violation of the agreements by Alijo Izetbegovic. Alijo Izetbegovic, contrary to the Yugoslav constitution, advocated that the rule of one man, one vote applies in Bosnia and Herzegovina. With that rule, Muslims could rule Bosnia and Herzegovina without respecting the will of the Croats and Serbs. The Yugoslav constitution required that each of the three peoples, Croats, Serbs, and Bosnian Muslims, elect their own political representatives. a total of 3 members of the presidency with the right to veto decisions of vital national interest. Alija wanted Bosnian Muslims to be able to rule Bosnia and Herzegovina with an absolute majority without Serbs and Croats, according to the tradition of the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, Alija Izetbegovic rejected peace plans that did not include his rule. In other words, he rejected all peace plans that were in accordance with the Yugoslav constitution, except the Dayton peace plan imposed by the United States. Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the Republic of Croatia fought against Big Serbia or Lesser Yugoslavia together with the Croats, from the moment Serbs started the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina until the conflict between Croats and Muslims. When the conflict between Croats and Muslims ended, they fought together again against Serbs. Throughout the war, Muslim refugees from Bosnia and Herzegovina were cared for in the Republic of Croatia. Therefore, the disagreement between Catholics and Muslim in Bosnia and Herzegovina was influenced by religious reasons, which did not allow for a rational political solution. And Catholics did not have problems with Muslims, as with people, because of their different religion. During the war, Muslims vowed to change their name to Bosniaks, that is valid today. Here are presented in 6 groups the activities until 1990, before the war, which the Serbs and Yugoslavs carried out when planning the creation of a Big Serbia or a Lesser Yugoslavia. Adoption of a political memorandum, military exercises, black propaganda, reorganization of the Yugoslav People's Army in the territorial sense, and in the command structure, creation of an alliance between communism and Saintsevism, and abolition of autonomy for Vojvodina. At the end of the 1980 with the revolution in Montenegro, Milicevic appointed Momir Bulatovic loyal to Milicevic. In 1989, political parties were established in the Republic of Croatia. At the end of 1989, a decision was made to call for elections. In January 1990, at a Congress of the League of Communists of Yugoslavia, Milosevic wanted to impose his will. Slovenia, the Republic of Croatia, Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina left the Congress. Thus, one of the 3 pillars of Yugoslavia fell apart, and the League of Communists of Yugoslavia disappeared. On March 14, 1990, up to 100,000 Serbs protested in court in Croatia, in which Serbs correlated Communist Ivica Rayan and Communist Franjo Tuđman to the Ustašas from World War II. At that protest, they shouted, "We will kill Tudjman, this is Serbia, this is a betrayal, give us weapons, let's go to Zagreb." Elections are held in the republics that have left the Congress. In April 1990 the first round of elections is held in Croatia. In May 1990 the second round of elections were held. On May 14, 1990, the Yugoslav People's Army confiscated weapons from the Republic of Croatia. Franjo Tuđman won the elections, and on May 30, 1990, the Croatian parliament was constituted. On August 17, 1990, the Yugoslav People's Army with the Air Force landed Croatian police helicopters that were going to disarm the Serbs who attacked the Croatian police station in Nin. By using the Yugoslav People's Army in such a way, Belgrade violated what was left from the Yugoslav constitution. Serbs in the Republic of Croatia were armed with the military operation of the Yugoslav People's Army called RAM. On 23 February 1990, Serbs killed a Croatian police officer on the Obravac-Benkovac road. The Serbs are raising an armed uprising called the Balvan Revolution, which is blocking Croatian roads from northern to southern Croatia. The Yugoslav Republic's ties are disappearing. On December 21, 1990, the Serbs declared the autonomous region of Krajina, which is in Croatia. On December 22, 1990, the Croatian parliament adopted a new constitution. On February 28, 1991, Serbs in Croatia decided to separate Krajina from Croatia and remain in the Lesser Yugoslavia. On May 2, 1991, Serbs killed 12 and wounded 24 police officers. On May 28, 1991, the establishment of Croatian armed forces have started.
Čula sam, još se sjećam kaj sad priči idemo. Upamti zauvijek da u njima vireni nisu oni Ako dođe dan da mi čovjek dobro zna, hoće uzet nju, al mi je ne damo, jer ona je dio nas i ostat ćemo tu. Cijeli život živim tu, ko u nekom plavom snu. To je zemlja gdje mog i osam, ja ostajem na njoj. Cijeli život živim tu, ko u nekom plavom snu.
It is obvious that the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina was used in the aggression against the Republic of Croatia. The Serbs had the tacit support of the Bosnian Muslim leadership in the aggression against Croatia. It will be proven that the war in Croatia is inseparable from the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is because Bosnia and Herzegovina was the goal of Serbian conquests, and because geostrategically Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia are connected. In order for the Croats to defend the Republic of Croatia, they also had to defend Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the 1990s, apart from Croats, there was no one to defend Bosnia and Herzegovina. In Bosnia and Herzegovina in May 1991, Croatian civilians are blocking the Yugoslav People's Army's path in its campaign against the Republic of Croatia. That was the heroic act of the Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Croatia declared independence on June 25, 1991. Croatia was facing the most brutal war against the already started aggressive implementation of the project of creating a big Serbia or lesser Yugoslavia. On that path, apart from Croatia, the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina had to be defended. In addition to external aggression on the territory of Croatia, there was an armed revolt and occupation of the Serb population in Croatian territory. The Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina were aware that the same aggressor was coming for them, and as volunteers they began to join the defense of the Republic of Croatia. They were aware that this would be a single battlefield involving both republics.
After baptism, the Croats made a treaty with Pope Agathon in 679, confirmed by their own hands and a firm promise, and a guarantee in the name of Saint Peter the Apostle. They promised that they would never go against a foreign country and make war on it, but would rather live in peace with all who are willing to do the same. The Croats received a blessing from the Pope of Rome for this act, and that is the promise that if any foreigners went to war against the land of the Croats and imposed war on Croats, then the mighty God would fight for the Croats and protect them, and Peter, a disciple of Christ, would give Croats victory.
On what foundations do you base your claim of the legitimacy of Croatian national demands?
Take a look at your history books. Croatia is an old nation that took shape before the French under Frankish rule did so. Our history books Saint Pima, who ruled from 850 to 864, bears the title Dux Croatorum. This is the first mention of Croats as such. Thomas lived from 910 to 928, takes the title Rex Croatorum in 925, which the Pope acknowledges. Our history books also say, during the whole period of the personal union with Hungary and the rule of the Habsburgs, Croatia will preserve the features of statehood in its ban and parliament. In addition, Croatia fits perfectly with the following definition of Otto Bauer: a nation is a totality of people united by a community of destiny into a community of character. In short, in order to justify its aspiration for sovereignty, Croatia can invoke both the historical right and the modern international law. Intellectuals and politicians, who speak of this people as a tribe, thus reveal their own deep ignorance of history. Had they wanted to see what was happening, their ignorance would have dissipated due to the form this war had taken. The aggression was not only aimed at Croatia's military and industrial potential, but also at Europeanism. While the European elite was concerned about the tribalism of the Croats, Europe was losing its romantic and Baroque churches on Croatian soil, as well as its Venetian palaces.
Ja znam da bolite, al nemoj majko brinuti, samo nas pozovi, tvoji su sinovi, za dom spremni ginuti. Na križ te primi, bacaju kocke za vojsku, čemu se raduju? Zar nebo ne čuju da ti ćeš majko uskrsnut? Domovino, opet gori stari plan, znaj da ginuti za tebe nije teško, vjeruj nam. Domovino, opet gori stari plan, znaj da ginuti za tebe nije teško, vjeruj nam. Godine očaja nitko ne može vratiti, i svaku ranu i suzu svaku mi ćemo naplatiti. Domovino, opet gori stari plan, znaj da ginuti za tebe nije teško, vjeruj nam. Domovino, opet gori stari plan, znaj da ginuti za tebe nije teško, vjeruj nam.
On September 25, 1991, a Decision 713 was made by the United Nations Security Council to ban the import of weapons into Yugoslavia. This was at the request of the influential diplomat and political Yugoslav Budimir Lanar. The decision badly affected Croats who had previously been disarmed and had a hard time resisting aggression. The aggressor, on the other hand, was armed. Additional armed forces from Montenegro and Serbia came to support an aggression against Croatia through Bosnia and Herzegovina. The first victims fell in Bosnia and Herzegovina on October 1, 1991, in the village of Ravno, which was completely destroyed. To the Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina, this was proof that the Yugoslav People's Army was carrying out aggression on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Muslim leader Alija Izetbegovic and the president of Bosnia and Herzegovina then sided with the aggressor and declared, "This is not our war." Many then saw that Bosnia and Herzegovina had been betrayed, especially Croats who were willing to defend themselves. On October 7, 1991, the Yugoslav People's Army rocketed the Banska Dvor in Zagreb, wanting to kill the leadership of the Republic of Croatia. Coincidentally, President Tudjman survived. On October 8, 1991, Croatia declared independence.
Svakog dana mislim na tebe.
Lučan vjetro i korake, ne vidjem svemira.
Ima samo jedna istina. Svaka svijeta ja za tebe.
Kamen puta, pjesma putuje.
Generacija noće se spava.
Cijeli svijet je sada za nama.
Svakog dana mislim na tebe.
Sam je tvojim korake. Temelj je u srcima,
A
ljubav u nama.
ima samo jedna istina. Svaka generacija za tebe.
Kamen puta, pjesma putuje.
Generacija noćas ne spava.
Cijeli svijet je sada za nama.
Ima snagu zlatnog krsta, ima oči moje mora.
Vratit ću se, moram doći, tu je moj dom. Moje sunce, duše nebo. Dobrim dan se budi, da osveta opaja. Ti si tu, za nama.
The destruction of Vukovar and its bloody fall did not make the Muslim leadership in Bosnia and Herzegovina to speak out. Alija Izetbegović was silent. Seeing this, the democratically elected political leadership of the Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina established the Croatian Republic of Herceg-Bosna on November 18, 1991. In decision to establish Herceg-Bosna, it was emphasized that it would respect the democratically elected government of the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Prior to that, in the 1990 elections, Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina voted for the Serb Party, Muslims for the Muslim Party and Croats for the Croat Party. Pursuant to the Geneva Agreement of 23 November 1991, the Army of the Yugoslav People's Army withdrew to Bosnia to Herzegovina from the unblocked barracks on the territory of the Republic of Croatia and the Republic of Slovenia. It was a sign that the war was being transferred to the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Some parts of Bosnia and Herzegovina were already occupied at that time. In 1992, military territories of the Yugoslav People's Army were organized on the territory of the Republic of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. This can be seen in this picture. It is evident that the 4th military area of the aggressor army included the territory of the Republic of Croatia. It is part of this blue area. These upper pliers wanted to connect two military paths that would be closed through the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina and split, and thus cut off the Republic of Croatia into two parts. The Croatian army prevented this by fighting against aggressors' army on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, against the Yugoslav People's Army and the Bosnian Serbs. Croatia had the right to do so, because the attacks on the territory of the Republic of Croatia came from the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Before the fall of the Bosnian Posavina, which was defended by Croats, Bosnian Muslims, led by Alija Izetbegovic, made a decision that contributed to the fall of the Bosnian Posavina. On March 27 and 28, 1992, at the 63rd session of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a conclusion was reached requesting that the Croatian army withdraw from Bosanska Posavina to Croatia. Subsequently, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 757 of 30 May 1992, which required the army of the Republic of Croatia to withdraw from Bosnian Posavina. With that, Alija Izetbegovic made a move in the interest of the aggressor. Alija hoped that Bosnian Muslims would be defended by the Yugoslav People's Army, which subsequently ethnically cleansed them of 70% of Bosnia and Herzegovina's territory. In 1991, there were more than 4 million people on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, of which 44% were Muslims, 31% Serbs and 17% Croats. These two images represent the ethnic map of Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the picture on the left we see the ethnic map of 1991. In the picture on the right we see the ethnic map of 1992, after the Serbs had already carried out ethnic cleansing of Muslims and Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Muslims are green, Serbs are blue, and Croats are orange. This picture shows the direction of the movement of refugees who were ethnically cleansed by Serbs. There were 400,000 ethnically cleansed people. The Republic of Croatia received the majority of Bosnian refugees. Croats managed to defend a large part of their territory in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Muslims failed to defend their territories. The Muslims were too weak to regain territory from stronger Serbs. Since they lacked territory, what they could not take from the stronger Serbs they intended to take away from the weaker Croats. They drew up a military plan Neretva 93, with which they intended to break out of the central Bosnia into the sea, and ethnically cleanse the Croats in that area. Alija Izetbegović did not accept the peace plans of the international community during the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There were 3 such agreements. Alija did not accept them, because they did not include his idea of a unitary Bosnia and Herzegovina. Prior to that, Bosniak Muslims signed a historic agreement on July 14, 1991 with Serbs, to stay in the Lesser Yugoslavia, signed by Muhammad Filipović and Radovan Karadzic. Thus, the Muslims sided with the aggressor army, that is, for political Yugoslavia. On July 21, 1992, Alija thanked Franjo Tuđman for the enormous reception of refugees from Bosnia and Herzegovina beyond Croatian means. On June 11, 1993, Franjo Tuđman complained to Alija Izetbegović that he had moved 7,500 soldiers from East Bosnia to Central Bosnia, where they would later be used for war with the Croats.
Mislili su neki, već nas neće biti, ni veselje svoje nisu znali kriti. Raselit nas triba, da nas manje ima, nisu tu ni bili, tad će reći svima. Nek tuđinu grizu, roda znati neće, bez jezika narod nema više sreće. Djeca roda povijest neće znati, potom svoj na svome neće biti Hrvati. Ko na tvrdoj stini svoju povijest piše, tom ne može niko prošlost da izbriše. Varaju se i ne misle tako, što se krvlju brani, ne pušta se lako. Ko na tvrdoj stini svoju povijest piše, tom ne može niko prošlost da izbriše. Mi smo tu odavna, svi moraju znati, to je naša zemlja. Tu žive Hrvati. Kroz vremena gruba i kroz ljute boje, branili smo časno mi ognjišće svoje. Čuvaše nam pređi ovu rodnu grudu, nisu zbog slobode ginuli za ludu. A sad evo opet nova zora rudi, posli dugi lita Hrvatska se budi. Tu na našoj zemlji naš se barjak vinje, crven, bijeli, plavi, više se ne krije. Ko na tvrdoj stini svoju povijest piše, tom ne može niko prošlost da izbriše. slova pišu od stoljeća 7. Tu Hrvati dišu.
The war between Croats and Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina did not suit the Republic of Croatia. Plan A of the Republic of Croatia was the whole of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state of three peoples, and the Republic of Croatia as the whole state of the Croatian people, as defined by the Yugoslav constitution. In a referendum in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Franjo Tuđman called on Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina to vote for an independent Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Republic of Croatia was among the first to recognize Bosnia and Herzegovina as an independent state, unlike Slobodan Milosevic in Serbia, who recognized Bosnia and Herzegovina only after the war. The policy of the Republic of Croatia did not exclude the survival of Yugoslavia within the former Republican borders, for example as a confederation. However, the idea of a confederation collapsed with the aggressive war of Serbia and Montenegro against Croatia, which began in 1991. Plan A remained in Croatia's interest until the end of the war. Plan B included the possibility of the disintegration of Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially in the situation when Bosnian Muslims started the war against Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1992. Namely, if Bosnia and Herzegovina disintegrated from the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which would become part of Serbia, almost whole Republic of Croatia could be bombed in future wars between Croatia and Serbia. Disintegration was not in the Croatian national interest. Therefore, Croatia's diplomatic victory was the Washington Agreement, which ended the war between Croats and Bosniaks or Bosnian Muslims in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The military alliance of Croats and Bosniaks or Bosnian Muslims called Split Agreement also suited Croats. Croatia was on the path to liberating the rest of its occupied territory. There was a Z4 plan that guaranteed the Serbs some form of state within a Croatian state, a state on the territory occupied by the Serbs, and from which the Serbs ethnically cleansed the Croats. The Serbs rejected Plan Z4. After that, before Croatia liberated its territory by military means, Croatia had offered the Serbs a pardon for armed rebellion if they lay down of weapons. The Serbs rejected the offer. After that, the Croats started the military liberation of their territory called Oluja Storm. The Serbs, realizing that their defense had fallen apart and that they had lost the war, the leader of the rebel Serbs, Milan Mardic, ordered the evacuation of the Serb population from Croatia to Bosnia and Herzegovina. In addition to the Republic of Croatia liberating its own territory, it had the right to enter the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, because the aggression on the territory of the Republic of Croatia came from its territory. In addition, the Republic of Croatia had the right to enter the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, on the basis of the Split Agreement. What made Serbs to commit such suicidal acts? The answer should be sought in the Kosovo myth. The Kosovo San Savic myth orders Serbs to choose death that will lead them to the kingdom of heaven, as opposed to rational solutions. Proof of such a mental structure is the statement of Serbian General Momcilo Perisic after the war. When asked by journalist Svetlana Petrusic in 1997 why they did not evacuate 30 to 50,000 Serbs from Kordon, General Momcilo replied, "So what, with 30 to 50,000 Serbs killed, we would show the world that Croats are fascists." By properly planning Operation Storm, the Croats left the Serbs 2 corridors to go if they did not want to fight. With minimal civilian casualties and the abandonment of these two corridors, the Croats saved the Serbs from themselves, from their Kosovo mythomania and the Sansavic kingdom of heaven. Serbs have had big casualties several times in history because of the Kosovo myth, for example in the First World War and the Second World War, where 2 million Serbs, Croats and Bosnian Muslims died on the territory of Yugoslavia. In addition, Operation Storm prevented Serbs from committing genocide against Bosnian Muslims or Bosniaks in Bihać. It was the first time in history that an army prevented genocide, in fact the second time if we include the prevention of genocide of Serbs against Bosnian Muslims in Operation Zima 94 or Winter 94. After Operation Milosevic, he mocked rebel Serbs for fleeing like rabbits.
Ima jedna stina u nidrima Knina, na njoj stig vijori, i s burom se bori. Ima jedna stina, tu je od davnina, pogled mi je žedan, pa je jutrom gleda i nikom je ne da.
Operation Stormer Luja was a tactical and strategic military operation that, thanks to its originality and success, is studied by numerous military analysts. The main directions of the attack were from the Dinara and Velebit mountains, in the direction of Nin. Previously in Operation Summer 95 or Algido 95, the preconditions were created for the 4th and 7th Guards Brigades to move from the peaks of the Dinara towards Nin. On the other hand, special forces of the Croatian police penetrated strongly across Velebit and Sveti Rock. The 1st Guards Association entered by helicopter detachment behind the enemy lines. The capture of Iljubovo Gorge and the capture of the enemy air base in Udbina was the task of the 9th Guards Brigade. On the north, through the Kapela from Slunj and Rakovica on one side and Korenica and Plitvice on the other, the forces of the 1st Guards Brigade attacked, to merge with the 5th Corps of the Army of Bosnia and Herzegovina, with the aim of unblocking the Bihać enclave. The area of Banija was surrounded from several directions. The strike force was from the direction of Petrinja, where the enemy offered fierce resistance, and further towards Glina, 2nd Guards Brigade was here. The 3rd and 5th Gadi Brigades were in the far east of Croatia, was waiting for a possible Serbian attack from the east. During the first day of the operation, the penetration of the Croatian army in depth was from 5 to 15 kilometers, and the enemy strongholds were in the vicinity or in a semicircle. Already on the second day of the operation, 80% of the planned combat missions were carried out. Most of the occupied Croatian cities were free again. Kostajnica, Petrinja, Slunj, Gračac, Obravac and Drniš celebrated. It was also celebrated in Nin, which was the center of the enemy rebellion, but has always been a Croatian royal city. The whole of Croatia was also celebrating. The liberation of Nin, the center of the enemy uprising in Croatia, most important strategic, political and military goal was achieved.
Tili su te i Ugari stari, tili su te i Turci mlađi, tukli su te svakakvi barbari, čijali si svima reci, ja sam Stina, kralja Zvonimira, Hrvatska sam od vika vikova, darujte mi, braćo, malo mira, ja sam Stina. Vaši prati dobro, tu je od davnina, nagri svoje glave, vijemo je slave, crve, bili plave, crve, bili plave. Tili su te i Ugari stari, tili su te i Turci mlađi, tukli su te svakakvi barbari. Čija li si, svima reci, ja sam Stina, kralja Zvonimira, Hrvatska sam od vika vikova. Darujte mi, braćo, malo mira, ja sam Stina, vaši pradidova. Ja sam Stina, kralja Zvonimira, Hrvatska sam od vika vikova. Darujte mi, braćo, malo mira.
The idea of creating a big Serbia, which was supported by the political Yugoslavs who saw the idea similar to creating a lesser Yugoslavia, ended catastrophically. It could not have ended differently, because of the ethnic mixing in the area that was supposed to enter Big Serbia, and from which the Serbs sought to remove non-Serb peoples. The resistance of the Croats in the Republic of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina saved many lives from the Sansavic idea of a big Serbia. Macedonia left Yugoslavia without war, and Slovenia with an operetta war with small casualties, because there were no Serbs in the territories of Slovenia and Macedonia which could be instrumentalized for the project of creating a big Serbia. Kosovo suffered several times in the 1980s, and in 1999, because Sansavic ideology could not accept the territorial loss of Kosovo. The Sansavism focuses on territory instead of the souls of believers. Bosnian Muslims, or Bosniaks, supported the idea of Lesser Yugoslavia, hoping that Serbs would not physically destroy them. Thus, in 1991, they tacitly supported the aggression against the Republic of Croatia. It was only when the Serbs turned against Bosnian Muslims in 1992 that they began defending themselves. A strong alliance between Croats and Bosnian Muslims did not take place, because Bosnian Muslims, contrary to the Yugoslav constitution, wanted a unitary Bosnia and Herzegovina, where they could rule over Croats and Serbs according to the tradition of the Ottoman Empire. Alija Izetbegović thus accepted the alliance with the Croats only for tactical reasons, with a fig in his pocket. Franjo Tuđman, as a communist who fought against the independent state of Croatia in the Second World War, did not seem to understand how Serbs could saw in his actions the return of the Croatian state from the Second World War. Croats could have prevented the instrumentalization of Serbs through prejudices in the Republic of Croatia. By fighting against prejudices before the disintegration of Yugoslavia, Croats could broke the Serbian and Yugoslav myths from the Second World War in time. The Croats did not have the support of the international community in removing prejudices, because the world supported Josip Broz Tito and Yugoslavia.